Stay tuned as we explore the evolving definitions of dating and marriage next on Views and Vibes.
Anybody out there who is a foster parent is really doing this for one reason, and that's that they absolutely want to help children.
We didn't realize that when we first started that there were so many teenagers in foster care.
They really do grow a lot and thrive in a stable environment.
I hope they leave here with a sense of pride with who they are. They can do whatever they really set their minds to. Kids need families like yours. Make a difference. Call 877-800-FOSTER.
I recently read a Huffington Post article by Lisa Haisha entitled, "Is it time to change our views on adultery and marriage?" The thesis of the article was that contemporary view of love and marriage is only a few hundred years old, and that particular image is a bit out of step with modern realities. How should we view dating, relationships, and marriage in 2014? Is the reason for marriages being plagued by infidelity and adultery, and there being such a high rate of divorce due to an unrealistic belief of what marriages are supposed to look like? Here to answer these questions and discuss the evolving definitions of dating and marriages are online dating coach at alittle-nudge.com, Erika Ettin, talk show host and author of the book, How to Gracefully Exit a Relationship, Frank Love, and an erotic educational specialist, Krystle Lofton. Welcome to Views and Vibes, you guys.
Thank you.
Glad to have you guys here.
Thanks.
Now, before we get started talking about changing the definitions of marriage and dating, let's talk about the definition of love by itself. Today, what does it mean to love someone? Let's start with you, Frank. What do you think? What does it mean to love somebody?
Most people seem to think it's to tell you what I want you to do and expect you to do it.
Okay, so it's a controlling thing.
It seems to be a controlling thing, and that seems to be the status quo. That's not my definition,
right,
but that's where I'll jump in on.
All right, so what would be your definition then?
Wanting for you what you want for yourself.
Okay, nice. How about you, Krystle? What do you think?
I think today, love, I would have to agree, is definitely about control. Who can control whom better? But for myself, I think love, I would define it as a mutual respect.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that's not really present in today's terms of love.
And Erika?
I think a lot of people get really confused between lust and love,
Right.
and a lot of people think that love is feeling gaga Disney movie over somebody, but I believe that love is a lot deeper than that, and you have to know people on many levels before you know if you love them. So I think it's
Right.
something much deeper than just the surface.
Right. And so going back to the whole idea of controlling someone, do you feel like a lot of people, in terms of when they're in a relationship with somebody or when they say they love someone, that they have to not only control them, but kind of manipulate them in order to do what they want them to do, to fulfill the things that they feel like they want to get out of a relationship?
I hope not. That sounds like a sad state of affairs,
it does,
doesn't
but
it?
when you look at the state of affairs, when you look at how relationships are contemporarily, is that what people are doing? Are they controlling people in order to get things out of them to do what they want to do?
Well, it's worth taking a look at when all of us are trying to get what we want with any situation we're in.
Right.
There's no question there. The thing is,
But are we really?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Where manipulation comes in is when we're not willing to admit it. So if you want someone to do something and you're not willing to tell them that you're getting something out of it or what you're getting out of it, I think that's along the lines of manipulation. But to act as though we're not getting something out of everything that we do, that's a farce.
What about in terms of treating people as a possession? Is that part of it as well? Especially when you talk about control.
I think people emulate what society tells them love is supposed to look like, what you're supposed to do. So I think as far as relationships are concerned, people are emulating what they see.
Right.
And it's cool to control someone. society tells women that if you don't control him or change him, that you're doing something wrong. So it's easy for us. I think sometimes what we see, we then practice in our own relationships. So then the control, the manipulation is what we think we're doing correctly.
It's just part of the game.
It's part of the game. It's part of the game. And love is a game. That's what they, call it. So who can win? You know, I have to beat you before you beat me.
And so
That is not something, that is not a definition of love I've ever heard, to be honest. I also think people try to emulate what they see. However, I think the complete opposite, in that they see these crazy rom-coms and they see, all these movies where everything is perfect. It's like flowers come out your ears and the rainbows come out when you meet the love of your life. And I think people hold themselves to those standards, which is why a lot doesn't work. Because if you hold yourself to that unrealistic standard, you can never fulfill that. So I agree that people try to emulate it, but I think we must be watching different stuff because
well, definitely with the new craze of reality TV, where love is no longer this blissful situation as it used to be with the movies, or every girl dreams of Disney, to be the queen or the princess and be taken away. Now what we're watching is a combative situation, is a relationship in turmoil, is control. And so I think that when what you watch changes, then your definition or the way you present a relationship would change.
I'm glad I don't watch reality TV.
Yeah.
But even with the the drama movies and the romantic comedies, even those have changed a little bit.
Yeah.
They're not all ending so perfectly
That's
anymore.
true.
Just thinking about the movie with Vince Vaughn and Jennifer Aniston, with was it called Roommates or something like that, or something to that effect? And they didn't, not to give away what happens in the movie, spoiler alert, but it didn't end the way that people expected to. Back in the day, everything, everybody gets married and it's perfect, but it doesn't end that way anymore. So even what we're seeing, like you said, like Krystle said, things are changing in what we're seeing.
That's true.
But going along with that, do you think that people have, or the views that we are seeing in TV, are those changing now more so than they have in the past? Has this definition of love always been the way we see it now, or has that changed as well? I mean, where has all this change begun? Or where did it start? Where do you feel like it started? Let's just start with like the idea of love. The definition that we see now, where did that change begin?
Well, is there a homogeneous understanding of where we are now? Because certainly where I think may not be what anyone else thinks. So
the whole romantic concept of love, where does that come from?
Well, it's marketing. You really look at the romantic way of doing things, the romantic side of things. It's really marketing towards women. It's getting them to buy things. It's getting them to buy into X, Y, and Z. It's just good marketing.
I think on top of marketing, however, it changes. It has changed. What romantic relationships and what romance used to be was flowers. And I agree with you. It was definitely, women get stuff. It was the cards. It was this big idea of what you're going to do for me. And I think that now it's almost a shared responsibility. And I can say that the media has made relationships almost a shared responsibility from what it used to be. Before, the man did everything. The man gives me the ring. The man proposes. The man does this. But as we have, dare I say, evolved, the relationships now are more focused on, I think, what both partners can do for each other. Now, that may not necessarily be positive, but it's definitely a more shared situation than what it was the Brady Bunch or Leave It to Beaver. Those concepts are changing. Marriage, life, family, love is changing, and I just think that we're changing along with that.
Yeah. I also think we're changing, some for the better and some not for the better. For the better, I think it's completely acceptable now if you're having issues to go talk to somebody as a couple, whereas I don't know if at Leave It to Beaver they were doing that on there. However, what I don't like about what's evolved is that, just like almost everything else in life, it seems people treat others as disposable. Right? So whereas before there's this commitment, and now, well, who else is out there? Let's just see, I'm not getting everything I want, so I'll just toss one person to the side and find another person. I don't think that's for the better, to be honest.
Right.
So.
We have to go to a quick break, guys. When we come back, we'll continue this conversation and figure out where dating and relationships and marriage have actually evolved to now. So stay around and we'll find out what happens after this.
Tommy's a really good kid. He's really helpful around the house. He loves to play with his friends. He loves school, too. He's real smart. My Tommy would never even think about trying alcohol. Isn't that right, sweetie?
Real kids are curious about alcohol. 40% try it by the 8th grade. Talk early, talk often, get others involved.
Welcome back to Views and Vibes, everyone. I'm sitting here with my panel of experts about relationships, and we're talking about the evolving definition of relationships, dating, and marriage. And coming back from that first part of the discussion, I want to talk about, if we're talking about how things are evolving and changing in terms of the way that we view love, why does it seem like our views on marriage have not changed? That we still have this little tiny box of what it means to be married and what married life should look like, and that has not changed in who knows how many years. You know, why hasn't that changed, but everything else have?
I kind of want to take a step back and say why also hasn't the view changed that, you know, you meet someone, you get married. So first, before, what should a marriage look like? I think it's interesting that people still assume if you're with someone for a really long time, you should be married.
Right.
And I think the definition of success is whatever makes people happy. And to be honest, I do think society will evolve to say, you know, whatever people are, they are. I met a woman on Saturday, and she's been with her boyfriend for 5 years. And I think we are still asking, the first thing we think is, why isn't she married?
Right, why hasn't
but
he proposed
I do think
yet?
down the line, people will be like, okay, cool. She's been with him for 5 years. Maybe that's not in the cards for them.
But wouldn't you think even after like the period of the 60s, we had so much freedom, and 70s of, you know, sex and, you know, the whole control factor was gone. Wouldn't you think we'd be beyond that now? But if you look at, this in terms of the article that I was talking about, if you look at the comment section, we had people talking about having open relationships. They were being attacked, you know, like quickly. And so the majority of people who still have this view on how relationships should be, they don't want to hear from anybody else that they're having open relationships. They think they're weak, you know. So for a lot of people, they're not moving forward. They're still stuck in this time warp of, this is how a relationship should be. This is how a marriage should be. If you've been together for 3 or 4 years, you should be married already. Why aren't you married? You know.
I think you have to look at historically the purpose of marriage. The entire purpose of marriage was for men to identify their offspring. That was it.
Right.
So that you didn't have kids with, you know, your daughter. So the purpose of marriage, you know, historically was to identify who your family is.
Right.
And I don't think we've changed that definition because marriage is so closely related to religion. And I think that you then have to tackle the topic of religiosity when you talk about marriage. So people don't fully, I think, have a true definition of what an open relationship is. And because that definition is so fluid, and what's open to you may not be open to this person, or polyamorous from a polygamous relationship. Because we haven't had a operational definition of that, it's so difficult, I think, for people to grasp or even swallow that concept of what an open marriage, open relationship is. And because, again, marriage and religion are so closely linked. When you get married, you go in a church or a synagogue, or it's in front of a pastor or a preacher or something. It's not like, you know, hey, I want to go
Elvis if you're in Las Vegas.
Or Elvis,
Right.
exactly.
Right.
But it's not like, hey, I'm in my bathroom, I like you, you like me, let's make a commitment. So a commitment made by two people is not considered as important unless you put that commitment on display.
Now, go ahead.
People are scared. People that are holding on to the white picket fence, 3-bedroom house, 2.5 kids, they're scared of relationships, the concepts around relationships changing. And when you are presenting something new, people are going to lash out and act as though they have a problem with it and fight back. And that's what's happening. But we're having this conversation right now. There's one person that we may be reaching that could very well be listening and saying, I never thought about that. And that's why we do what we do.
So how do you start to move outside? First of all, okay, how do we define the box? You know, the way that contemporary marriage is looked at. How do we define what that box looks like?
I've got 3 definitions. I've got 3 ways of looking at marriage,
Okay.
and I've done all 3. So marriage can be, it could be when you stand in front of clergy. It can be when you go to the court. And it can be when you say to each other, we're married. But that's me. A lot of people would say, hey, you standing in front of someone else and saying you're married is not you being married. I disagree. I've done it. I've done all 3, like I said.
Okay.
So as we look at what marriage, what the box is, let's look at the different types of marriage also. So I throw that one back to you. I don't know. What did other people think?
How do you guys see it?
I mean, I've done the church marriage contract business agreement thing, and that didn't work. So I think now marriage and what the relationship defines marriage as being, I think it depends on that relationship. I know individuals who have been together for 20 years. And they are more married than I know people who went and got the ring and were in front of the clergy and signed the paper.
Right.
So I really think the definition of marriage, it has to be an open discussion between those 2 people. Well, what are we going to do about this? You know, I'm not going, you're not going, or if you were, you would have been left.
Right.
And so now what is our next natural step? Is it the clergy? Is it Elvis, or is it, you know, Sonny and Cher going in the bathroom and calling it a day?
Right.
But I don't think people are having those conversations. I think they're walking into relationships with assumptions.
Right.
This is what I'm expecting. You're going to be with me for 2 years. I'm going to get a carat ring. I'm going to have 2.5 kids. We're going to have a minivan. I'm going to be a soccer mom. And I didn't express that to you when we got together. I presented my representative besides myself, so you had no idea that I wanted that.
Right.
And then
You should've known.
I should have known, exactly. And you should have known, because you know, you read my mind.
Right. But actually, Frank, you actually bring that up in your book too, in terms of communication, then understanding what it is that the discussion you should have before you guys get married, right?
Absolutely.
All right.
The book is called How to Gracefully Exit a Relationship. One of the big premise of the book is a graceful exit begins when the relationship begins. It has everything to do with the conversations you have early in the relationship, the landscape that you create, the things that you discuss.
Right.
I mean, and when you get to those things early, you don't have to deal with them late. You don't have to deal with them when you're angry. If you create an agreement, this is what we would do if we split. This is who I am today. This is who I am when we connected. Then even if it were to go to a judge, when a judge has to piece it all together, you could have a document in front of you where this person actually said, this is who I am and what I believe.
Right.
Can you imagine a judge reading that and saying this guy didn't believe, he said he didn't want children, or he said he did want children and she said she didn't want children. So this was a disagreement they had from the very beginning.
Right.
Let's be clear, they had this disagreement from the very beginning and not act like somebody changed.
Right.
Or changed, you know, someone did something underhanded.
Right.
Everything's up front.
Right.
These are just a few of the things that the book touches on.
Yeah. Well, Erika, with your clients, I know that you show them how to set up dating profiles and everything too, but in your discussions with them, once they meet someone, what kind of things do you tell them to talk about from Jump Street? Are you telling them to be completely honest about who they are and how they should view a relationship, or what kind of relationship they want, or what?
That's a really good question. So in my job, I do help people market themselves online. And people always ask me, kind of back to the marriage question, what is your success rate? Well, I don't base success on marriage, because whatever makes you feel successful is success. An unhappy marriage is not successful, whereas happy being single is successful. But anyway, I tell them, it's funny, so I have kind of an order of things they should bring up, sort of. So the first date, I tell them just to talk about casual things. I always say, make sure you can stand each other before you decide if he's going to be the father of your children, right? Because you don't want to be like, so what's your timeline? How many children do you want to have? On the other hand, though, at some point early on, you do want to discuss what you're both looking for. An easy way to do that is, so what are you looking for? People are not mind readers, as you both were saying, and I tell my clients and friends this all the time when they complain to me, oh, he doesn't do this, she doesn't do this. Have you told him? Well, no. Well, how would he know? So the first date is really just to get to know each other. But then it is important to have things come up, like children, especially as we get older. Some people will have children. Some people will want children. You want to know where they're coming from pretty early on.
Guys, we have to take a quick break again, but don't move. We'll be right back after this.
Dad.
My favorite thing.
Really, Dad, what are you doing?
Paying bills. Every month a stack of them come, just as regular as the rain.
What's this one?
That's a special one, son. I pay it first.
How come?
It's money for my retirement account. I put some money aside each month, just like I was paying a bill.
Wouldn't you rather buy something?
I don't want to work forever, and I don't want you to have to support me in my old age. In a way, I'm buying peace of mind. I'm on the installment plan.
Back, guys. We're still in this discussion about the changing definitions of relationships and marriage and dating. When we went to the break, we actually were talking off camera. But how honest can you be with someone? You know, if you want to have a life, if you want to spend a life with them down the line, you know, okay, yeah, I want to be able to still have sex with other people, even though I love you and I love the things that we have together. But can you have that honest conversation with anybody, and especially for you guys to actually move forward?
If she's in that situation, I would be out.
Right.
If you said, I'm going to be cheating on you in 3 to 5 months.
But it wouldn't be cheating if you're open about it, if you're telling them
If the other person accepts that, fine. But I personally wouldn't. But I think you have to be honest up front, because you don't want your partner to find out 5 years down the line.
Maybe you do.
But you know, you should know up front what you're getting yourself into, particularly with the children issue that you were talking about before.
But I think that people are honest because of a fear of being alone.
Right.
And I'm so terrified of being single that I'm going to present whatever I need to present and deal with whatever I need to deal with just so I'm not by myself.
Right.
I think we have to tackle that issue first, that hey, just because you're single doesn't mean you're lonely.
And you agree that that's an issue,
Yeah,
right?
it is definitely an issue, you know. And so I know several women who will deal with what they're given, not what they want, but what they're given, because any man is better than no man.
Right.
And it's almost like a badge of honor that I have a man.
Yeah.
Society
it's
tells you that your girlfriends tell you
dynamic.
that. So if I do or say something, or if I tell you that I don't agree with the fact that you want to have an open situation, that you're going to cheat on me in 3 to 5 months, I'm not going to say that because I don't want to be by myself. And we have to deal with that first. I think if we deal with the importance and the okayness of singlehood, then we can start to have those honest conversations. And I can be cool with, you know what, that's not really for me, but thanks for letting me know.
Right,
Exactly.
right. Particularly, you have something you want to
There's
say.
so much to be said there. I mean, when we're talking about secrets have everything to do with how comfortable we are talking to one another.
Right.
But it also has to do with what our goal is at a given time.
Right.
I may be okay with you being mad at me in 5 years because I was having sex with someone else. And you may be okay with threatening me. And be clear, often we're dealing in our partnerships under threats. We want our partners to know, I will do something to you if you were to have sex with someone else. We
Right.
want our partners to know that, so we threaten them. Well, you're both out to get what your goal is, whatever that is.
Right.
And if you're willing to threaten, they may be willing to hide. It's a very interesting and nuanced dynamic.
But I think so many people have this view, once again, going back to the view of what marriage is supposed to be, looking at this box, whether it's based on religion, whether it's based on what society tells them, and they don't want to imagine anything outside of that box. But
That's
what we're
right.
finding is, because in the article that I was reading that, we all read, she was saying that there's a survey that 41% of the people who are married admitted to cheating in some
Yes.
form or fashion, whether it's physical or emotional. And so if you have such a high percentage, not saying that we should give in to the idea that, okay, well, if it's going to be like this, then we should all just give up and just, forget marriage and just whatever. But isn't there a new way to start looking at how marriage is supposed to be as opposed to what you think it is? So how can we redefine, how should we start redefining marriage and relationships at this point?
I personally think the work has to come before the marriage and not during the marriage.
Right.
So I don't necessarily think it's the marriage problem that people are cheating. I think it's because, like you said, people don't want to be alone sometimes. They get into relationships that are not the right relationships. Let's say you want children. You got to get into, unfortunately, women do have to worry about the biological clock. A lot of women get in relationships that they shouldn't be in just to have children. So I think a lot of this stuff can be dealt with before the, should we even get married? I think everyone should go to counseling before they get married.
Oh, for sure.
Right? And I agree with what Krystle said too. Like, I wish there wasn't that stigma again for being single. Like, it's too bad because I know plenty of people who are very happily single.
Right.
And even when I deal with my clients, with even just writing their profile, I still remember one client. She had this fascination with fast cars, but she looked very demure, and I was like, men are gonna love that. You look like a Snow White. She looked like Snow White, but you love cars.
Right.
And she made me take that out of the profile. She's like, no, and I said, you're crazy. Don't just be in any relationship. Be in a relationship where a guy loves your quirks.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think in order for us to redefine marriage, we have to redefine what is okay with us. What I have found with the ladies that I do talk to when I teach my class is that they are open to the conversation of redefining marriage, but then it's, well, what's my family going to say? What's this person going to say?
And that's what it comes down to a lot. It comes down to how other people view what you're doing.
And we have to get out
whether
of
it's a
that.
status symbol, of being married and you being single and all your friends being married and you feeling left out, or you maybe like we talked like they talked about in the article about how people view things in Japan. That you can't, as a man, you can't move up in your business if you're not married. It's all about status and what everybody else views about it. But what about you as the couple? How should you guys view it?
But that's the conversations that we're not having. That's the conversations that women have with their girlfriends while they're complaining about their man, instead of having it with their man about these are the things I'm complaining to my girlfriends about.
I totally agree.
So we're not having those conversations. Just as Frank said, we have to be honest, and that honesty is something that you have to desire and also demand.
Right.
And I don't think people demand honesty from their partner, so they don't get it. So you're going to get whatever you ask for. If you ask for nothing, you're going to get nothing. And you can't get mad when you get nothing and then expect him to give you everything because you didn't demand it to start with. So if we're going to redefine marriage and redefine what this whole marriage thing is, then it has to be a conversation of we're going to talk about and communicate what my expectation of marriage is and what your expectation is. And if we want to get married, if we, and it's okay if we're not. And again, you have to kind of negate what other people say. Your family, your friends, everything.
Okay, go ahead, Frank.
Demanding honesty is a dangerous, dangerous thing.
But it's a necessity.
No, it really isn't. If you understand that everybody has something to hide. Everybody has something they're not willing to talk about right this minute. And it could be, I may be willing to talk about it in an hour, but that makes what I'm not willing to talk about right now a secret. And if you're not willing to allow me that time, if you're not willing to allow me the time to sit with it, to deal with it, or to not talk about it, then you're encroaching. You're encroaching on my mental space, my privacy. You're encroaching on all types of things, and that's a very, very dangerous thing to do if you want to be close to me.
Well, I don't think it's ending. I think it's just, allowing you to do that.
Right. Well, that's going to be the final word, guys. We have to go. I know the conversation just starting to get this. I know we got to go. So before we go, I'd like to thank Krystle Lofton, Erika Ettin, and Frank Love for joining us today. You can find out more about my guests by going to our website, viewsandvibes.com. Until next time, I'm Tariiq Omari Walton, and this has been Views and Vibes.